Hi, Todd Dunn here on January 27, 2018. Today I want to talk about solar for RVs and vans again. And today what I want to talk about is a do-it-yourself portable solar system. I see a lot of these advertised. The prices are all over the place, ranging from a low of about $180 for a 100-watt system up to hundreds of dollars for a 100-watt system. And frankly, I think the higher prices in particular are completely out of whack, and the lower prices are not that good a deal either. So what I want to talk about is building your own system from components. And there aren't really that many components. I'm going to use a 100-watt system as an example because that's probably what most people who maybe when they're first getting into solar go out and look at, a 100-watt portable system, because everything is there. All you have to do is connect it to your batteries. And I'm going to tell you how to build your own 100-watt portable solar system. But what about for those who are technically challenged? Is this going to be too difficult for a technically challenged person to do who doesn't understand electricity? Well, I'm going to have to say not really. You are going to have to use some basic tools. This is a solar panel. This happens to be a monocrystalline solar panel from a major manufacturer. Polycrystalline panel will look a little different, but it works the same way. You put it in the sun, it makes electricity. Solar panels come with these nice aluminum frames. Now let's flip it over and look at the part that we need to worry about. This is the back of the panel right here. These are the electrical connectors. They're labeled. One is positive, that's this one, there's a plus sign here. And the other one is negative, that's that one, there's a negative sign on the tag down here. Now, so this is where you're going to make your first connection. You have a couple of options. Your first option is to go out, and if this is a 100-watt panel, this particular one is a 50, but I don't have 100 handy. Also, they're kind of big. You're going to have to connect the wires that go from the panel to the solar charge controller, right here and right here. Okay, what about wires? Well, you have a couple of options. You can supply your own wires, or you can buy custom-made wires from a solar company that have connectors that match the connectors on the solar panel, so you just plug them in. But you're going to be limited with a 100-watt panel to somewhere around 20 feet of wire length. That's if you use number 12 wire. You can get to about 30 feet if you use number 10 wire, but that's going to cost more money. If you use wire that's smaller than number 12, say number 14 or number 16, you're only going to be able to go 10, 15 feet from your RV with the panel. And you might want to be able to move it further if you want to park the RV or van in the shade and put the panel away from it in the sun. So what do you need for wire? Well, I would say ideally you probably want to go with a 100-watt panel with number 12 wire. Looks like this. If you buy your own, you can buy a red wire and a black wire. Red wire for positive, black for negative, so you don't get them confused. And if you buy your own wire like this, you're going to have to cut the connector off of the panel wires, strip off a little of the insulation, do the same, strip off a little of the insulation on the wire here, and then use what's called a butt connector to connect the wires. Just slide the butt connector on, crimp it with your pliers by squeezing it, and do the same on the wire from the solar panel. Very simple. And if you get fancy, you can even get yourself a crimping tool and use that. They cost about $15. So, wires. This is one way you can go. If you supply your own wires, you can also buy this kind of wire. This is what's called duplex wire. Inside this sheath, there are two wires, one red, one black. But the sheath keeps them nicely organized, so you don't have a couple of loose wires that you have to maybe tape together or something like that. The sheath also provides protection from sunlight. And you just have to cut the sheath back a little bit, strip the wires off, and again, crimp them with a butt connector to the wires on the panel. Take out the length you need, cut it off, strip off the insulation, and connect it to the solar controller. That's simple. Okay, the other option is just to buy a 12 gauge extension cord, which you can pick up a 25-foot one for around $20. Pretty reasonable. And cut the ends off the extension cord, strip the wires back a little, attach one end to the solar panel, the other end goes into your charge controller. Simple as that. Well, that brings us to the charge controller itself. You have two options when it comes to the charge controller. The first option is what's called a PWM controller. For a 100-watt panel, you need a 10 amp controller. You can pick up a 10 amp PWM controller for $20 that will do the job. Or you can do what I recommend, and that is to buy an MPPT controller like this one. Now this controller, or this kind of controller, is going to cost you around $100. Seems like a lot of extra money, but there's a reason that you might want to go with the more expensive controller. And that's simple. The PWM controller is anywhere from 20 to almost as much as 30% less efficient than an MPPT controller. MPPT controller runs around 98% efficiency. So if you put 100 watts in from your solar panel, you'll get 98 watts out. With the PWM controller, depending on what time of day it is, how bright the sunlight is, you might put in 100 watts from your solar panel, but only get 70 to 75 watts out. So you're throwing away around a quarter of the energy from your solar panel. Now, you could simply buy a second solar panel, but if you do that, you're going to have to get a bigger controller, a 20 amp controller. Whichever way you decide to go, if you want to go for a little more money and get the better controller that will get the most out of your panel, you can get an MPPT controller like this one. How do you hook this up? Let me grab a wire here. You've got a wire coming from the solar panel, and this has a series of connectors here. These two here are for connecting to the battery. These two are for connecting to the solar panel. This is my red wire, the plus wire. So I would put it in the plus connector for the solar panel right here. Slide it in there and tighten up the screw, which is on the top, and you're done. And the battery connections are made the same way. Very, very easy. Again, you're going to need it for a 100-watt panel. You're going to need a 10 amp controller. I would recommend that you bite the bullet and buy the more expensive MPPT controller, because that way you'll get the full output of your panel going into your batteries, as opposed to only about 75 to 80% of the output of your panel. Now, again, we need more wires. We need to go from the charge controller to the battery. Well, again, very simple. You connect the wires here on a charge controller, and I would use, if you bought duplex wire, just use a piece of it. It'll be adequate. If you bought number 12 duplex wire, it'll be fine. So cut off an appropriate length, attach it to the charge controller, and then attach the other end to the battery. To do that, you're probably going to want to attach some connectors to the other end of the wire. Most RV batteries have screw battery posts that you can attach wires to with a nut on them. So you take the nut off, slide a ring connector on the end of the wire over the nut, tighten the nut over the post, tighten the nut up. Simple as that. There's a sort of standard that the negative post is usually a 5/16 inch post, so you want to buy a ring connector that'll fit on a 5/16 inch post, and the positive connector is usually 3/8, so you want to buy a ring connector that will fit over a 3/8 inch post. Ring connectors are not very expensive. They'll probably cost you about $2 for what you need. And you just attach them by sliding them onto the end of the wire and then squeezing them with your pliers, or maybe a pair of vice grips if you've got some more elaborate tools. And basically, that's all there is to it, to a basic installation. If you want to get fancy, you can install a fuse between the solar panel and the charge controller. You can buy an inline fuse that will you can just attach in the positive wire, and an inline fuse will cost you about $5. And I would put a 10 amp fuse in. That'll handle a 100-watt panel. Okay, that's all there is to it. So how much is it going to cost for a basic single 100-watt panel and a charge controller and wires? If you buy the 100-watt panel, that's going to cost you, say, $120. If you buy an MPPT charge controller, that's going to cost you about another $100, so we're up to $220. The wires, if you buy an extension cord and use that, that's $20, so we're up to $240. And then miscellaneous connectors are probably going to run you about $3 or $4, and an inline fuse will run you another $5, so say $10. So let's say $250 total for our 100-watt system that will put 100 watts of charging into your battery in full sun, as opposed to the commercial portable solar out panels that you can buy that almost all come with a PWM controller and will actually only give you 75 to 80 watts of charging. So you might pay a little more than the cheapest portable solar setups that you can buy, but you'll get more out of it, and in the long run it will be worth the extra cost. Another thing about this particular kind of solar charge controller, there are two models available. One model basically looks like this, no outputs, no displays on it, other than some LEDs that tell you the state of the charge, very crudely. Or you can buy this one, which has built-in Bluetooth, and you can sync your phone to it, and you can get all the information about your charging for the current day and going back for 30 days. You can also use your phone to program this charge controller. Okay, so that's our first system, about $250, and you have a pretty nice system that you can program with your phone and monitor with your phone. So if you're in your van or in your RV, just turn your phone on, start the app, and there it is. Find out the state of your battery and find out what it's been doing for the last few days. Now, down below in the description of this video, I have given a complete list of parts for this 100-watt system based on a single 100-watt panel. And finally, you've got your 100-watt solar panel. You're going to have to put it in your van or RV when you're not using it. You want to protect it. Well, some of the fancy systems that you can buy pre-packaged come with a nice nylon bag, but that isn't 100% necessary. What I would do if I was going on the cheap is I would just buy some heavy-duty garbage bags, slide the panel into that. That'll provide you with adequate protection, and it will keep the wires and everything that are attached to the panel under control. Very, very simple to do. Okay, I think that I've gone on long enough. I will do a separate video on a do-it-yourself foldable 100-watt panel based on two 50-watt solar panels. Okay, thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like the content. Please subscribe to my channel so you'll get notifications of future videos. And I look forward to having the opportunity to talk to you again in the future.